Hola, buenos días. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos en esta presentación de resultados.
Good morning, and thank you so very much for joining us today. This is our third earnings presentation of the year. As you can see, apart from Fernando, we have with us today Jose Luis Jimenez, Assistant CFO. This is because we want to be more transparent, and we're going to always now have with us a high-ranking executive, president, a vice president, and also somebody from the finance department. So thank you, Fernando. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you for being with us. With us, as I say, this morning. I'm going to take a general look at the earnings presentation, and then Jose Luis Jimenez will analyze to a greater degree the numbers. As you know, we presented our IFRS information in June and December, but we wish to be as transparent as always, and we want to keep the market abreast of our quarterly evolution in terms of our local accounting standards, which is applicable in most of the countries where we operate. So if we see the macro context, I would say that the data speak of a more balanced panorama, influenced, of course, by fiscal policies and monetary policies in the past few years. We see that we are leaving behind us high inflation, and this has repercussions of a positive nature in the consumers' purchasing powers recovery and in the relaunching of corporate activity. In terms of the negative elements, there are geopolitical tensions which are getting worse, and there is social fragmentation and polarization which continue to represent a threat for stable growth of the global economy. And this being the case, monetary policy of central banks is and will continue to be a key element for upcoming quarters. As you know, Mapfre's strategy in this volatile and uncertain context is based on our business model, which is highly diversified on the basis of products and geographies. The recent reassessment of our strategic plan allows us to be even more flexible and adapt better to the context. And as the numbers tell, we grow profitably on a quarterly basis. The most representative data of the evolution of the combined ratio, which is below that 95% and shows the increase in technical profitability of our non-life business. Iberia, the United States of America, Brazil, and Mapfre continue to be the major contributors to our earnings. The contribution of financial earnings to the profits continues to be relevant in practically all of the geographies, and it is based on our robust investment portfolio and a favorable context of the markets. But we still have room for improvement, especially with regards automobiles in Iberia and EMEA, which are regions in which the measures implemented for a return to profits are as yet not sufficiently reflected in our earnings. Now, this improvement in our profits allows us to make known an increase to the tune of 8% of the interim dividend, which will amount to 6.5 cents per share. 2024 will be a record-breaking year in dividend payout. So to summarize, the diversification of the business, the solid nature of our operations continues to be the foundations of our profitable growth and allow us to continue to be as committed and engaged as always vis-a-vis our shareholders. Now let's take a look at the evolution of the key numbers. Mapfre premiums have grown by 4.6%, amounting to 21.622 billion, whereas earnings are above the 25.3 billion. We'll see in a couple of minutes that this growth would be even more without the depreciation of LATAM currencies. Recurrent profits of the group are at 744 million euros with a growth to the tune of 36.3%. If we discount our goodwill impairment, the attributable profit would amount to 654 million with a growth to the tune of 39%. As we did last year, Mapfre has opted for a prudential approach to the assessment of intangible assets, and our goodwill has been reduced in order to have a healthier balance. Last year, we registered an impairment of our goodwill in the United States of America to the tune of 75 million, and in 2024, we adjusted the German Vertis to the tune of 90 million. Auto in Germany is undergoing a scenario of relevant losses because of high inflation levels, and Mapfre, of course, is no stranger to this reality. Our digital operation in this country is not active in other non-life business lines nor in alternative channels, which would allow for the mitigation of auto losses. We believe, though, that the Verity operation will be great, but we must be prudent and we must track this impairment. For Mapfre, Germany is a very important market, and thus we will undertake before the end of the year a capital increase to the tune of 30 million euros, which basically will be invested in digital platforms. In any case, as I said on previous occasions, this goodwill impairment will have no effect whatsoever on cash generation or on solvency or on the capacity to pay out dividends in Mapfre. This increase in profits is based on the improvement of technical management with a reduction of 2 points in the combined ratio. And as you can see, it's 94.8 if we compare with 96.8 of 12 months back. I would also underscore a major improvement in our ROE, which is at 12%, excluding goodwill impairment, and practically 11% in nominal terms. Finally, Solvency II ratios with numbers in June 2024 of about 196.6%, which is practically twice the minimum requirement. I think this speaks for the very solid nature of our capital structure, and the ratio, as I said, continues to be within the range as set forth by Mapfre. And now José Luis Jiménez will carry out a more detailed analysis. Thank you, Fernando. Good morning to all. Let me begin by underscoring some of the more relevant factors to take into account for these first 9 months of the year for Mapfre. In life, we've grown premiums to the rate of 5.6% thanks to the good performance of savings and risk lines, especially in LATAM and Iberia. In non-life, the growth of premiums has been of 4.3% with a major improvement in technical profitability, and this thanks to the different subscription measures. Also, the notable development of recurrent financial results, which amount to 576 million euros, and this is thanks to the positive evolution of our investment portfolio. As to technical business lines, we continue to improve the profits of lines such as auto in those markets where we are not as yet at the level of objectives set forth for the combined ratio. This process to adapt the rates will continue to have an effect quarter after quarter, although in some markets to a faster degree than in others. By regions, let me underscore the evident advance in Iberia, an increase in profits of 15.15%, 283 million euros. LATAM continues to be the main contributor to Mapfre profits with 306 million net results. And finally, Brazil, 188 million euros, which is 3.3% more, thanks to general insurance and the improvement in terms of technical and financials. A very positive evolution also Mapfre Re, which groups reinsurance and global risks with a solid results of 207 million euros, which is 9% more than in the same period 1 year ago. The most important event in this third quarter were storms in Europe, but there have been no other relevant catastrophic claims. However, in view of the volatility of weather and in view of the continuous increase of middle intensity claims, we have bolstered prudently the reserves for this business unit. North America includes the US and Puerto Rico and also tracks a major improvement in 89 million for the earnings. In the US, technical measures that have been implemented have led to a notable increase of over 8 points in our combined ratio vis-a-vis last year's. And now let's talk about the financial elements of this period. Consolidated earnings of the group amount to 25.345 billion euros, which represents a growth to the tune of 3%. I would underscore the growth of financial earnings, which increased by 11%, as we can see on the chart to the left on your screens. Premiums grow by 4.6% in euros and are above and beyond 21.6 billion, although they do reflect a certain impact because of the appreciation of the euro. and this at constant rate of exchange, premiums grow by 6.1%. This growth addresses a generalized improvement in the business, with increases to the tune of 4.3% in non-life and 5.6% in life. Let us break down the premiums of our main business lines. We track growth by lines of 1.1 in general insurance, over 6% in reinsurance, 4.4 in autos, and 6.4 in health and accidents. As to life, the premiums amount by 5.6%, bolstered by life and savings, which grows above and beyond the 8% line, whereas in life risk we see a growth of 6.8%. On this slide, you observe also a positive evolution of the investment portfolio, which grows by 3.3% and is above and beyond the 45 billion line. Asset structure has not undergone major changes vis-à-vis last year. Most of the portfolio corresponds to fixed income and other similar assets above and beyond 80% of the total. I would also underscore our treasury position with over 2 billion euros, including fixed income investments with a maturity of less than 3 months. On the right, you see a table which addresses Mapfre's public debt position, approximately 23 billion euros, of which more than 9.7 billion have been invested in Spanish public debt. As to assets under management, pension funds and investment funds together represent more than 13 billion euros, growing constantly every year. On screen, you can see premiums and results by regions and units. Let's now make a reference to the more salient points. Iberia premiums, we see 7.159 billion with a growth of 6.2%. Latin America, another 7.738 billion euros, divided between Brazil and the rest of the countries in the region. In Brazil, the drop of 5.4 is due especially to the depreciation of the real and to the slowing down of farming activities as a consequence of the reduction in the funding of harvest in a setting where interest rates are on the uptick. In other countries, we see issuance growing in most markets, especially Colombia, plus 24%, Mexico, plus 12.9%, and Uruguay, plus 7.8%. In North America, premiums are of 2.126 billion. The growth is of 3% in euros. Mapfre Re premiums grew by 3.5%, and the number now is 6.288 billion euros. As to earnings, I would underscore the positive evolution of Iberia and LATAM and the healthy recovery of the North America business. Mapfre Re continues to cast very solid results. And now we'll talk a little bit about the evolution of combined ratios and ROEs by regions and units. Mapfre's combined ratio in this quarter is of 92.9%, with an uptick of 3 points vis-à-vis the previous quarter. In the 9 first months of the year, it is at 94.8%, which is an uptick of 2% in the interannual. By business lines, general insurance is 81.1%, offsetting the high accident rate in autos with a combined ratio of 104.2%. And health and accidents is slightly worse and now is at 99.8%. And finally, life risk continues to be very profitable. 85.4% is the percentage there. By regions, the Iberia ratio is at 98.4%, affected by the autos. In Brazil, the ratio continues to improve. The number is 74.1%, thanks to developments in general insurance and auto. We are struck also by the profitability of our Brazil business with the highest ROE in the group. The number is 24% in September. In North America, the combined ratio is at 98.5% because of the notable adjustments that have been carried out and also because of good weather, so rates and weather. And finally, reinsurance continues to be stable, 96.1% being that number. As we've pointed out, the healthy evolution of the business and the financial strength of the group allow us to commit further to shareholder remuneration. Mapfre board has decided to increase the interim dividend for 2024, and the number now is 6.5 cents per share, 8% more than last year. The payout is scheduled to take place on November 29, and thus, in 2024, Mapfre will pay out its highest ever dividend, 15.5 cents per share. Therefore, the amounts of dividends received by Mapfre shareholders will be 477 million euros, as always in cash. The average profitability per dividend per year is 6.6%. Over the past 5 years, approximately 8%. Fernando, thank you. Thank you, José Luis. Very clear, very thorough. I would like to underscore that these numbers for the third quarter confirm the positive trends as fostered by your new strategic plan. It is true that after the pandemic, we observed a notable increase in our premiums, practically double digit, but now we do it more profitably in practically all markets and units. It's been an extraordinary quarter in terms of earnings, with over 280 million in recurrent profits and a combined ratio in these 3 months of less than 93%, which leads all units and regions, with the exception of EMEA, the smallest, now can showcase combined ratio under 100% at 30 September 2024. The diversification of the business by lines and countries allows us to deal sustainably with those challenges that the geopolitical scenario continues to present. These results allow us to a degree of optimism and are solid proof of the solid and strong condition the business is in. The uptick in the dividend reflects our confidence in the future and our commitment vis-à-vis our shareholders. We have further strengthened our balance in an exercise that can only be designed as very prudent. Our equity capital is more than 8.4 billion, with an increase of 4.5% so far this year. So very solid data, very profitable growth, so we're optimistic and we believe that we will make good on our strategic objectives. Thank you. Javier, if you will, we can take questions. José Luis and I will take them. Very good. Thank you. Our first question from Rafa Sierra from Seguros News. He asks about health in Spain is undergoing difficult times, expecting for the Mapfre issue to be solved, which will have us perhaps thinking about higher rates. What is Mapfre going to do to deal with this new health scenario? Well, thank you, Rafa. Let me begin by saying that, as you know, we left Mapfre some years ago, and this was because this business was not sufficiently profitable. It is true that we need to tackle the changes that are taking place in the health universe. In the pandemic, there are more and more activities, but there is better and better quality. And consumers, of course, want that quality, good quality service. So Mapfre is a part of an outstanding network of suppliers, and I can only say that the quality is outstanding. Our NPS is really at the very top. So we want to continue to grow. We are not poised as we would be poised. We're not going to do it with any other mentality than that of ensuring that our clients have the best possible coverage. A question from Capital Madrid. Good morning. I observe that there's a slight downtick in Brazil. What about the expectations in that market? Let me say about Brazil, and then José Luis can add. First, we are delighted to see how Brazil is doing, and especially with our bank assurance agreement with Banco do Brasil, which proves that there is a very high potential when Mapfre is involved. Brazil, after the pandemic, really took off, based, of course, on growth in bank assurance. We continue to improve. We're impacted this year by the inflation, but Brazil continues to be strategic. It contributes to our earnings. The ROE is the largest in the group. And well, we can think about the numbers, but what I can say is that we're delighted. Yes, the business is doing beautifully well, and Fernando is right in saying that the profitability is fantastic. Yes, it is true on the one hand that this is good for our investment portfolio because we'll have more financial earnings, and it is foreseeable that the portfolio activities continue to grow. Our expectations in Brazil is that rates are going to continue to grow in order to slow down inflation. But from a business point of view, our growth in premiums, which have resulted in the first 9 months, I think speaks for this fact. Yes, the harvests were important, but growth in local currency is strong. And how will we see a solution to these issues? Well, the Congress will have to take a decision. And it is true that this year there's been a depreciation of the real of approximately 12%, so the impact will be felt. But growth in terms of local currency continues to grow. We believe that rates in the US will continue to be high, so the real at some point will have to appreciate. Another question with regards to the US market, are we expecting changes depending on who wins the elections? My answer would be not really. What we're doing is very mature. We've really looked at the technical parts. We're at combined ratio about 100 or less, especially general insurance, independently of who wins. I think that operations will continue to be profitable. A question now from Asegurata. A number of questions. Actually, let's group them into separate headings. In Iberia, the combined ratio is 104% for autos, better than July. What is the roadmap? Have there been problems? When do you think you'll be under 100? What are your forecasts? Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. We were expecting this question, I have to say. Now, we've said on previous occasions that our auto strategy has been different depending on the geography we're in. In Spain, we've wanted to protect our portfolio, and the adaptation of the rates has been carried out progressively in order to protect the insured parties. Of course, there's been an adaptation because that has depended on the risk profile of each one of the insured parties. So we'll be seeing that this continues. Insofar as we have combined ratios in excess of 100%, we're going to continue to have to adapt the rates. Now, in terms of extraordinaries, well, nothing new that we haven't mentioned. So in June, we said that we are observing social inflation, which is major in terms of changes in the structure of the tariffs. And we continue to see this in the third quarter. I'm talking about increases of over 20%. Of course, we're going to have to continue to see this adaptation to prices. We believe that, yes, we're doing things as we should be doing them. There has been a major improvement in the third quarter with regards to the combined ratio, with a major drop if we compare it with the second. But we need to continue to slowly adapt our rates to the risk profiles. I'd like to underscore something else here. Unfortunately, today, we're talking about a concept which is that of insufficiency of rates, which is the worst possible enemy of solvency. We cannot do anything if we don't break even. We need to adapt in the long term. Today we're talking about insufficiency, we talk about autos, we talked in the past about the farming insurance. What is important is to guarantee welfare to our customers and well-being. We're talking about events after the pandemic. We're talking about cyber risk, new coverage. We're talking about climate change. We're talking about more and more adverse weather events. Of course, we need to adapt our rates slowly but surely. But we cannot operate at a level which is less than our cost structure. Another question, and this one deals with, again, Mapfre. Mapfre left some time ago, but what are your expectations? And the follow-up, is it feasible to abide by the Mapfre models? The answer to the first question is no, and as to the current scenario, this is a question which I think should be posed to Mufasa insurers, not us, not Mapfre. Well, thank you very much. We have no further questions. Thank you very much. As always, we're available. We're available if there are questions in the upcoming hours. We will continue to be available. But thank you all for having joined us today, and we will see each other soon again. Thank you all. Thank you all. Good morning and good day. Thank you and goodbye.